Hello, Rob from Fountain Pen Journey with a review of the Sailor Shikiori Tsukuyo-no-Minamo Burgundy Yodaki fountain pen, which has probably got to be one of the longest names of any fountain pen in my collection. It's a Sailor fountain pen. I'm generally calling this the Burgundy Yodaki in my notes when I'm journaling and things, so I know which pen I'm using, just to keep track of it. It's a long name. It's part of a series. It's basically the Tsukuyo is the Moonlight series of the Sailor fountain pens, and you can usually identify them by the sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, opaque moon coloured finial on the end of the cap. There's a whole series of these fountain pens, and I do have some other ones which I will review in due course, and it will be interesting to see how those reviews play out, because I have yet to really properly ink them up and try them, and their writing experience could well be a little bit different to this one. This is a fine nib. It's a fine steel nib, and of course it's a Japanese fine. It's a Sailor fine, so it's even, in my view, even finer than Japanese fountain pens. It's a really fine nib, but it's good, don't get me wrong. It's a nice writing pen. I actually quite like this pen because it's very similar to some of the other designs of fountain pens that I really do enjoy writing with. I like the shape, the feel, the size, such as the Pen BBS 308, which they don't really seem to make anymore. I've always enjoyed those pens, and this just happens to be very similar, but a higher price. This isn't to say that the Sailor Shikiori Tsukuyo-no-Minamo Burgundy Yodaki is a expensive Japanese fountain pen, but it's higher priced than, say, for example, the Sailor Lecoule, which is one of their cheapest fountain pens, and I really love those fountain pens. I have reviewed one or two of them in the past, so head on over to my Sailor playlists and you will be able to find all the Sailor fountain pen reviews in there. And I will be reviewing the other Sailor Shikiori Tsukuyo series fountain pens that I've got in due course, so please do hit the subscribe button, turn on all notifications if you want to know when they get published. So let's have a look at the pen. As I've already said, we've got this domed, almost conical sort of opaque off-white moon coloured cap finial up here. There's a gold cap band, gold clip, which is pretty tight. It is pretty tight, pretty stiff as well, and a tapered cap with a gold broadish cap band that tapers down, and a torpedo shaped barrel. That's it, that's the shape. Most interestingly, and certainly in this Burgundy Yodaki colour, it is a demonstrator. It is a translucent demonstrator, so if we get the light just right, you can see the nib in there, and see if we can see, yeah, we can see inside the barrel, and there is the cartridge installed in there. Unscrew the cap, one turn, 1 3/4 turns. We have got a gold coloured fine Sailor nib. We can't get any other colours, any other nib widths, and what I think is a relatively short section with a gold ring, gold band, the threads, and a step up to the barrel there. Try and focus that so you can see those. And it's not a long section by any means, but it's actually it's surprisingly comfortable. I do not notice it. You do feel the threads higher up on your fingertips, but they're really quite smooth. They're not sharp, they're minimal threads, so you can feel them, but they're not an issue. And the way that you hold the pen, no problems with those threads, and certainly not the step up, which is also minimal as well, just there. So really, really minimal. As you can see, shortish fountain pen. I generally don't write with my fountain pens posted, and I find that this pen's fine for long writing periods. It's great. The Sailor nib is fantastic. It does post quite deeply, and it is incredibly sort of, well, not incredibly, it's very secure. It doesn't really pop off, but I don't really like using it posted, though it does make it a much nicer length, if that's your thing. But I'm happy with this pen. Unposted, does a good job. So let's have a look at how this nib actually writes, because this is where I would say that the Sailor Lecoule, for all of the negative reviews that I've seen, I've used 3 of those Sailor Lecoule pens so far, and I've been very happy with all 3 of them, no problems whatsoever. And this is, in my view, not quite as good, which is a bit of a shame. So I'll write down the name of this pen, Shikiori. Right, okay, excuse me if I'm bouncing the camera, let me just move my microphone out of the way. I'll do this in all capitals so that you can truly read it, and I've got a point of reference. Tsukuyo-no-Minamo. That wasn't a skip, that was me trying to write. Burgundy. Yodaki. With a fine steel Sailor nib. So there you have it. There is the full name written out. Let's do the writing sample. I don't know whether you can hear, there is feedback. Imagine using a pretty hard lead in a mechanical pencil. That is Sailor feedback, and it's one of these weird things. It's actually really pleasant. People go on and on and on about having a glassy smooth nib, but this writing experience is actually really pleasurable. It's smooth, but you can feel it. And that is true feedback. There is no scratchiness here whatsoever. It just happens to do a good job. As you can see, it really lays down ink. This is a Japanese fine, remember, and that's pretty wet. So it does go through ink fairly quickly for a fine, or perhaps even a European extra fine nib. And it's great. Reverse writing. It's a bit awkward because the feed it feels kind of large, but it is possible, and this is taking this down to what I would go as far as saying an extra fine. It really is quite fine, but it's a decent writing experience. There's no ink flow issues. It's just, I mean, it's not great, but it does the job. Extra fine, possibly extra fine, debatable, but you know, it works. But in normal writing, this fine is very nice, really nice. When you hear anybody talk about Japanese fountain pen feedback, where, say for example, they say, oh, you know, it's got the classic feedback of Platinum or Pilot or Sailor, it's worth experiencing. Even if you think that you need glassy, smooth nibs, it's just something that is so good. It really is a pleasure, and it's great. The ink is just Sailor Black that came in this proprietary Sailor cartridge, which proprietary cartridge is I've never been a massive fan of them, but I tolerate it for the fact that I do have a few Sailor pens, so I don't mind buying the odd Sailor converter and the odd Sailor packet of cartridges, because it's good. This is a nice pen to write with. It's very smooth, it's very pleasant, the feedback is great. It seems strange, because feedback to me, when I first started on fountain pen journey 3 years ago almost, we're getting on to 4 years now, many years ago, the feedback was kind of one of these things. No, I don't want feedback. If you use something like a cheap Jinhao X450, for example, and you get scratchiness, it's awful, it's horrible. But then you experience this feedback and you go, actually, this is really, really, really nice to use. And there is one other thing that I really need to tell you about this pen, because it is such a subtle thing. And there's the writing sample out of the way, and whether it will even show up in this light is that this translucent material, I don't even know if I can get the flash to operate. No, it's never going to work, but I can try and focus on this. But there are very, very, very subtle sparkles in this material. It's almost imperceptible, but there are gold sparkles in the resin. There we go. As you can see, it just about in the light, gold sparkles, very evenly distributed throughout the acrylic. And it's really, really quite nice. It's a very, very subtle but very pleasant effect. And I would say that if you're after a slightly sparkly fountain pen, then these are a good series of fountain pens to go for. So there we have it, review of the Sailor Shikiori Tsukuyo-no-Minamo Burgundy Yodaki fountain pen. Sounds very much like me talking like James May on one of his James May in Japan videos. So there we go. I like it. I think it's good. The writing experience isn't quite as good as the writing experience that you get with the Sailor Lecoule fountain pens, which are cheaper, which is a surprise. But I will be reviewing more of the Sailor Tsukuyo Yodaki fountain pens in due course, and stay tuned, subscribe, and let's see how those pens write. So thanks very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye.